I've learned to share those stories either through the songs or through mediums like this so that people that care about the band or care about punk rock in this community can look around and say, okay, well, there's someone who's experienced love and loss and death and violence and these things that I've experienced as well, and they're still going, and that's the value. I don't subscribe to the idea that music and art can't dictate to society a better way, because I've seen it happen with my own two eyes. If we can choose empathy over apathy, if we can choose optimism over cynicism, that is how we create well-being. As big of an idea as where you spend your money, how you vote, the things you buy or put in and on your body. Those are all valuable ways to alleviate suffering of others and also create well-being for yourself.
Welcome to the Collaborative Resource Hub by Wellness Provisions. Our mission is to bridge the gap between mental health, wellness, and music, specifically rock and roll. I'm Amy McBride, owner of Wellness Provisions, the most badass wellness business. Wellness Provisions supplies rock and rollers with high-quality supplements. We give you a trustworthy place to go where you can essentially shop blindfolded. Our wellness kits were created out of a need to simplify your shopping experience and make it stress-free. You'll get the most effective nutrients in the least amount of bottles with the least trial and error. Immerse yourself in the Collaborative Resource Hub by going to our website, where you'll have access to helpful resources that can nudge you in the right direction. Let's inspire each other. If that guy did it, so can you. Find the Collaborative Resource Hub interviews on YouTube, all major podcast platforms, and subscribe to our newsletter to stay in the loop. Last but not least, my legal disclaimer: nothing in this interview or the Collaborative Resource Hub substitutes medical advice. Please connect with your GP if you need medical guidance. Chris, thank you so much for sitting down and making time to chat with me today. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a privilege. I have done a little bit of research of what we're getting into, but I'm also prepared to learn things and to hopefully have a better understanding of the work that you do at the end of this, because it's really um, it's interesting and inspiring to me to know that there are people who don't see the community of punk rock as only existing in a form of musical genre, but as a form of activism and as a form of education and as a form of healthcare. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a valuable tool, and the community that we have is a really important one. And so anytime I interact with someone or meet someone who is using their vocation and carrying the ethics of punk rock into that, I think that that is a tremendous thing and needs to be applauded. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And again, I'm excited to learn a bit about it today.
Yeah, thank you. That was super just well said too.
Great.
Yeah,
So far, I'm one for one. Yeah.
yeah. We'll keep points and I'll let you know where you stand at the end.
Cool, cool.
So for anyone who isn't familiar with Anti-Flag, how would you describe your band to someone?
I usually say we're a punk rock band, and our agenda is one that's pretty specific. The band began as an anti-war band. We were born out of the first Gulf War, and we saw our friends in the community around us, especially in Pittsburgh, one that was um, ravaged by economic greed. We saw our aunts and our uncles, we saw our parents and grandparents lose their jobs in lieu of cheaper labor overseas, and that crippled the community of Pittsburgh. And when you have poor communities, they often serve as cannon fodder for war.
Hmm.
And that correlation was really stark to us at the early inception of the band. And we saw the young people we were going to school with and people around Pittsburgh having no option to go to college, and military recruiters saying, hey, if you want a college education, sign up here. We saw people feel like they were at the end of their rope, and they didn't have many options left in front of them, and the military was the only option that they foresaw. And truthfully, we believe that subsequently have been proven right through a lot of the tell-all of history, that the wars in the Middle East are not ones um, that are for moral reasons; they are for economic reasons. And so that was the inception of the band, was to just get one person in our community to think about the choice they were making by signing up or not signing up for the
Hmm.
for the military to go fight and kill and die in war.
Yeah,
And
it's an industry.
Yeah, and so thankfully, many years later, we've been able to interact with a lot of people who found our band or this community and made a choice not to do so. And subsequently, I think that the band has evolved from that singular issue to be more empathy based, and that's the entirety of our band. Is we're just trying to incorporate empathy into all aspects of our lives and using punk rock to do so.
Yeah. Again, like it's a vehicle for spreading goodness, basically, in short.
Yeah, I mean that's what you want. I mean, a lot of it's out of our control, and
Mhm.
the recognition of where our power lies and what our control is a very valuable one. I think that when the band began, there was the hope that you write a song on Monday and on Tuesday racism is over, and it doesn't work like that. It's a much more arduous process, and they say that the moral arc of history bends towards justice, and I truthfully believe that. But there's a lot of people and a lot of places of this world who don't have the luxury of waiting for that
Mhm.
bend to occur. So it's up to those of us with privilege and our power to reach up there and grab that motherfucker and bend it as much
Yeah.
as we can.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's like a grassroots way to look at it, but change, like I mean, like they say, it's you start with just people, and then those people change and then affect other people, and that's the web that has the biggest impact.
I mean, that's our entire model of operation.
Yeah.
Again, there was naivete at the beginning, and we thought music does change the world. The song, you write the song, and then the song does the work. But we learned very quickly that it's people. And I don't subscribe to the idea that music and art can't dictate to society a better way because I've seen it happen with my own two eyes. I met that person who said, "Hey, I ran into anti-flag in 1998, and I chose not to join the military." And we go, "Okay, well, that's our tangible victory here." Sure, we have songs that are about shaping and reshaping how exposed through capitalism humans are to pain and suffering, and that hasn't changed. So you
Mhm.
could say like, well, you're a failure, but then you also know that that's not how it works. You're chipping away at this much larger thing, and ultimately all you're trying to do is alleviate suffering any way you can,
That's
and,
it.
and
Yeah.
that's the victory.
Yeah, exactly. Baby steps and small amounts, but you're doing something and it's something that's positive.
Yeah, and I wish that we could sweep and paint with broader strokes, and that's always the goal. I mean, we go into every record hoping that a million people hear it and it changes lives. Truthfully, several 100,000 people hear it and it works, and some people hear it and just think it has a nice beat and then they move on. Some people only listen or pay attention to the politics or the empathy that is ingrained in the song itself, and that is rewarding to us as well. But that part's out of our control. The only thing
Mhm.
we control is writing the song and how we share it and how it looks. And
Exactly.
people can interact with that thing and feel our passion and feel our the ideas that are indemnified and woven into the fabric of that piece of art.
Yeah. So, what does well-being mean to you?
Well, I think it starts with being kind. And I think it's being kind to yourself and being kind to the people around you. And again, it's very easy to hope that the things that are out of our control will contribute to our well being. But to sit on our hands and wait for that to happen, I think is a losing game
Mhm.
for a lot of people. And so my initial reaction to the question is that if we can choose empathy over apathy, if we can choose optimism over cynicism, that is how we create well-being. And oftentimes we create well-being for others in hopes that it comes back to us, and that doesn't really that doesn't work either. You can't control how it comes back to or who it comes back to. You can only put out goodness and positivity and kindness into the world and hope that it comes back to somebody. And you're allowed to hope that it comes back to yourself. But
Yeah.
if you're only doing it for that reason, That's also a losing game
Yeah.
there too.
So then do you feel like you have to cultivate all of that within yourself first before you can even really give it to someone else?
I know that's difficult. I mean, there are days where you wake up and that's just not in the cards. But I do think that the people that have it within themselves to operate that way, that's what we should be doing. Again, it's about the alleviation of suffering of others as much as we can. And a lot of that does begin with the individual in the steps that you take. As big of an idea as where you spend your money, how you vote, the things you buy or put in and on your body, those
Mhm.
are all valuable ways to alleviate suffering of others and also create well-being for yourself. So I think that we just need to be cognizant of those things, especially in a society that is beaming us consistently with information that we're not good enough, that the things we have aren't new enough, that no one's going to fuck you, no one's going to love you, nobody is going to care whether you live or die unless you have this fucking pair of jeans or whatever. Um, that's a lot to deal with. So again, I think that I subscribe to the idea that you can't change the world until you can change yourself. But I also know that for a lot of people, just waking up and getting out of bed is a victory. And so I think that for those that are in that situation, we need to applaud those. I've been there many times. For those that wake up every day and look at the world and think about how can I make it a better place, then we want those people to feel celebrated and applauded for doing so.
Mhm. Have you struggled with mental health imbalances?
Oh yeah. Many times, and I think that you know most of the people that you're going to have on here that come from the world of music, none of us are doing this because we're okay. Yeah, like
And this is something because I reached out to someone to see if he wanted to interview, and he said, I don't really know what I have to, offer. And I said, well, you check the first box. You're alive.
yeah,
You've been around for several decades and you're still alive. So you're doing something right.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that that is the look. I'm not an expert. I've just have a lot of lived and shared experience, and so when I came on, the guise of it was let's talk about your experience. And if anybody is coming to your rock and roll show because they think you're a mental health expert, I think that that's those are two different things. My point was mostly that most people that will put themselves in a van with five or six or eight other people and drive around the world in hopes of finding friendship and community, it's because we're missing that. And that longing for acceptance is often a driving factor in a lot of these mental health problems that you probably discuss on here. So I don't mean to joke about it, but ultimately most people that pick up a guitar and need people to clap for them, we're missing something. We're not complete or we're not whole. And because of that, I think that you do have a valuable perspective on these discussions and on mental health and well-being. And so, yeah, certainly I've struggled many times in my life. My childhood was certainly more difficult than most. And my adulthood was certainly more difficult than most. But I also, have a lot of privilege and a lot of perspective because of that privilege. And I hope I've learned to share those stories either through the songs or through mediums like this so that people that care about the band or care about punk rock in this community can look around and say, okay, well, there's someone who's experienced love and loss and death and violence and these things that I've experienced as well, and they're still going, and that's the value.
Yeah.
So that I mean, kind of tying into what you're saying, just making it through to the next day is a victory,
Yeah.
especially in a world that doesn't often will look past those that are in the most vulnerable or painful places.
Yeah. That's true. Just most people like that are swept aside and forgotten and not focused on. Are there tactics, I guess you could say, things that you incorporate in your life or have in the past that have helped you a lot to kind of stay on the level or, rise above even?
Yeah, so unfortunately, what I've learned is that they don't work for everybody. That was one of the failures that I had in my life was being in a relationship with someone who also suffered from or struggled with mental health issues, and trying to use the same coping mechanisms or perspective methods that worked for me for them, and that was a failure because you're just like, well, you know when somebody's upset and you're using this idea of, well, somebody has it worse, that's not always solving the problem. But for me, through my life, it's been very valuable to look around and to acknowledge my privilege, and in doing so, it has helped me recognize what I should be doing or could be doing to not wallow in the moment. And so while that was helpful for me, it certainly wasn't helpful for them when I was like, you know, suck it up. There's starving people in Africa or whatever. People say that it's just like, it's what you're dealing with is not as bad as this, and
And
that.
that like bothers me though, because it like I feel like people say that and it invalidates, is that a word?
Yeah.
What you're dealing with. And everyone is entitled to their life circumstances. It's their life. But like so what you're saying, like looking, around with from the perspective of privilege, or in other words, do you practice gratitude? Is that like what you're doing, what you're thankful for?
That might be the proper way to say it. But essentially, it is about, I guess, I experienced this traumatic violence several times in my life. And so, whenever dealing with the monotony of mental health problems and looking in the mirror and feeling inadequate, it paled in comparison to the violence and the pain and the suffering. And so, you're able to compartmentalize the two feelings and say, okay, well, this is something I just need to move through. Whereas this is the thing that really stunted my growth and my ability to see the world as a valuable thing. And this is, I understand what this is a little bit better, so I can function through it.
Yeah.
So whether or not, it's not necessarily saying like, okay, well, you know, I'm a white male and I can go get a bank loan. That's good. It's not quite that simple. It's certainly more about just an acknowledgement of the mud or the pain or the work that you walked through to get to this place where you're slipping again. And
Mhm.
then you say, well, I can't slip here because I've made it through this. And this was much worse. And um, that has been a valuable tool for me. Like I said, it might not be a valuable tool for everybody because that part I can
It's it's a good one though. I mean, basically keeping track of your wins, your achievements, through life stuff or even just like little tasks through the day. I mean, it all puts kind of success and growing in perspective, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a really eloquent and valuable way to put that. I don't know that I've compartmentalized it or broken it down that sufficiently. Even through therapy, just kind of talking about it, like when I get into my father being a child molester or my sister being murdered or my brother being in jail, or when I go through the lineage, the therapist is usually overwhelmed by the information. And then you go like, okay, well, they're like, dude, you're still here, good job, go, you're not in the ditch somewhere, like move
Yeah.
on, and then I go, okay, cool, I don't know, was that valuable or did I just break their heart a little bit by taking them through? Because
You're like, I'm gonna make so much money off this guy.
yeah. Well, there's that too, but there's also most people that get into mental health or get into positions of um, trying to alleviate that pain are empathetic people, And I have seen it weigh on other people when you do break down a life that is quite traumatic. And they almost need a break as much as you need a break at the end of it. And I've had really bad therapists where at the end of it, they're like, well, why did that happen to you? And you're just like, well, I don't know. So it's it sometimes validates the pain whenever someone is so flabbergasted about the situation or the outcome. And you're like, yeah, I know everything was going great. And then it wasn't. Yeah.
But so do you, I don't know, this keeps popping up in my head, so I'll just say it, is those things that have happened in your life, I mean, you don't like, it's not part of you. They're separate from you. They happened around you, but it's not you. Do you make that distinction?
Um, there's two sides of that coin. There's the side of that coin that is the American in me, the machismo, the this is what cut my teeth. These are the scars and the badges and the honor. And I've got two other siblings, one of which is dead, one of which was in jail and is a felon. And look at what I've done. Take that, world. And then I go like, well, who the fuck are you? That's not that's not really anything to pat yourself on the back for. You didn't
The
do
bar
those.
is really low.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes and no.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. My father molested my sister, and my sister and brother have a different father than I do, and that experience for my sister led her on a life that was um, not very easy. And because of that, she found herself in a situation that was also not easy. And then she was shot and killed in a drug deal gone bad. And, it was $30 of cocaine and, two shots in the back of the head. And you're left with that. You're left with that void of understanding forever. And so through that, again, it took a long time to go, well, will I turn into my father? Like, how does that work? Like, I don't know. Is that a DNA thing? Is that like what? So I think that what you're getting at is there's an uncertainty forever about who you are in terms of a relationship to this violence and this pain. Um, and I often ask myself, is this my trajectory? Is it unavoidable? As much as it can be, is it ingrained in you?
Mm-hmm.
So the work to be the antithesis of that is constant.
Yeah.
So yes, you're trying to draw that line and say these people and these things exist over here and I exist over here, but it a lot of it again is very murky water in terms of it's not like a random person did this random thing on this random day. It was 50% of your bloodline, and that's a much harder compartmentalization.
Yeah, to differentiate. Here's an advert in less than 20 seconds. Did you know that Wellness Provisions offers one-on-one wellness sessions? Yep. So if you're seeking to get healthy and ahead in life, but feeling a little stuck, then book a session and let's get you unstuck. Now, back to the interview. So, shifting gears slightly,
Yeah.
what does self-care and like relaxing look like to you? Like in general, what do you do for yourself?
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. I mean, the most valuable tool for me is actually I play ice hockey, and it is the only place where my brain completely shuts off. I will play. I distinctly remember the biggest show we ever played was in Poland. It was a festival, it was a free show, and we closed the show, and there was 600,000 people at the show, and I remember turning around to my amp and thinking like, did I pay the light bill this month? And you know, and I was like, wow, even here I'm not fully present in what's happening. But when I play hockey, there is never a moment where I'm thinking about something bad that had happened earlier, or am I on track with this? You're so fully immersed in the moment, and so yeah, it's surprising to a lot of people, and I use that analogy because most people would think that it's like when you're on stage and you're rocking, you're free. You're never freer. And I'm like, no, man. like
But
real life.
it also seems like I mean, it's your job. And so regrettably, the things that are your job kind of become like mundane, I guess, to a point.
Yeah, and I mean, like that show is regarded in my mind as a top 10 experience for our band. But I 100% remember thinking about, did I pay the bills? Did I do, like, and it just, that part of your psyche again is so far out of, I maybe could have meditated or something before the show to prepare myself to be free in that moment, but it's not a, yeah, it's not, taking for granted the situation as much as it is a thing that we do and can start to become robotic, and we have to figure out ways to do that. And I can't remember whether it might be in that movie It Might Get Loud, which is like a documentary about guitar players, and it's like Jimmy Page and The Edge and Jack White are in it talking about playing guitar. And one of the things that Jack White does, which I love, is he sets his equipment up differently every show so that the keyboard is just a couple steps further away today. So he's got to be on his toes. It doesn't become mechanical to him. And that's something, since I watched that movie, I've adopted. Like, I will move my mic stand or move something, and I just like want it to be a little askew so that I am present in the moment, and it's not like I turn around and everything isn't right in place. And yeah, it was kind of a long-winded way to get there, but I certainly think that there is value in being present in those moments as much as you can be, but even still, real life will rear its ugly head.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that's a really awesome thing that Jack White does though. That's brilliant. I mean, keep it fresh. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. Until he misses the note, and then he's mad at the guitar tech or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, there's that. Um, so aside from the ice hockey, for staying, or for just taking an evening to yourself, or even I guess if it's on the road, like do you meditate? Do you do like face masks and just, like listen to relaxing music? Like what do you do?
No, meditation is new to me. Since the pandemic, so I'm almost like 1 month away from being 1 year of being a kung fu student. The classes I've been taking, I've been doing 5 days a week, 2 hours a day for a year, and it's been really intense. And so for the last couple of months, I had to go to California and record something, and then I'm easing my way back into that full day schedule. But through that, there is a lot of meditation. But I'm still like a 5 minute guy. It's very difficult for me. My brain does not turn off,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't think that would be a very uncommon thing for you interviewing musicians consistently. We're all kind of the same in that sense, and um, the ability to slow down becomes equated with failure and also obsolescence. Like, if you stopped playing music for a week, would people forget about you? And like, so any moment where you're turning off is hard, and I find that when I do mundane tasks, that's often where I think of the greatest ideas. Mowing the lawn, I don't know how many times I've mentally figured out what I want to say before this song on a stage somewhere. Brushing my teeth, I wrote drum parts because of, like all of that shit. And so I think that even when you're in the meditative state or you're doing that, sometimes the idea comes and you're like, well, my Shifu, my master, is watching me, and I kind of want to get up and record this voice memo. But
Yeah. I
But
know that's a fine line is in those kind of moments, for people like when they're running or just, yeah, like doing the dishes or something, that's when they're just clear from whatever the normal stuff is. That's when inspiration comes in. And if
yeah,
it's during meditation, I tell myself, I'm like, okay, I do my damnedest to let it go. And then I know that if it was a really good idea, I will remember it when I'm done after the 20 minutes.
there's a do you know who Mitch Hedberg is?
The
Um,
name's familiar.
he's a comedian. He died of drugs. He's my favorite comedian. But he has all of his jokes are just one liner little quips, and one of my favorite jokes, because I believe it to be very applicable to creatives, is that he says, I'm a comedian, and for work I lie in my hotel and I think of something funny, unless and he said I think of something funny and then I write it down, unless the pen is too far away, then I have to convince myself what I thought of wasn't funny. And I couple that because I'm also very lazy. And so I know there have been moments where I'm like, is this idea that good? So far away. And then like, that was probably a real moment for him. And I really love that because it's one I can definitely identify with.
That's funny. Is there anything specifically healthy that you've implemented in your life that has like kind of inspired creativity?
I think that, I became a vegetarian when I was 15, 16 years old because there was a pretty girl who was a vegetarian and I wanted to impress her. And I said, I'm a vegetarian too. And then, but 10, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I can't remember, I became a vegan. And I would say that that is certainly a moment where I became more understanding of the impact of the way I eat and how it helps me balance all the dumb shit that we do, like not sleeping for a week straight because you have a fly every day, or you have 10 shows in a row without a break, or and so it really became apparent to me, like, yo, if my intention is to do this for a long period of time, at some point, taking care of yourself is a valuable move in that plan. I didn't drink or do drugs from when I was 16 until I was 30, because of the band, and all of us in the band wanted to be clear and present, and even still we have a rule that nobody drinks or does anything before a show. You can't, because what we're doing we believe in so greatly that we don't want it to be a caricature of itself, or we don't want to not be present in the moment to share these ideas. And that's not for all bands, but I know for us it's a very important part of it.
Yeah. Do you have any just kind of like final thoughts or like bits of advice that you would want to pass on to someone just to live a healthier, happier life?
Well, I think that the first and most important part is to not listen to me, but to listen to yourself. And I think that your body and your brain are going to tell you what you need with far greater accuracy than some jackass who plays rock and roll. But I do think that what you touched on really early is a very valuable lesson for anyone who listens. Is that at any moment where you feel as if no one gives a damn, there are so many people who do, and you just might not have interacted with them yet. And the world is big, and I remind this is like a common reminder for anyone who I work with, in terms of, like, if I produce their record or if I record their band, or we have this record label AF Records that we put out a lot of younger bands on, because of the vacuum of social media, people in their desire for immediacy of everything has led us to believe that when we create something and put it out into the world, as soon as we do that, it's no longer valuable. And that goes for people too. That once we interact with somebody and it doesn't work, that our all of our interactions are going to be that way. But the world is fucking big, man, and it's gonna take a long time to go through everybody and not and have that failure rate be the same. And I would make an argument that it's not going to be the same. And so, sure, as something as inconsequential as you made an album and a few hundred people heard it, and now they're asking you for the next one. So you feel inclined to super serve that immediacy when you should be looking at, like, okay, well you're here and I know you and we're going to be friends forever. There's a bunch of other people who I want to interact with and speak to, and how can I do that? And that should be the same in terms of how we interact with ourselves and interact with other people. That leniency to allow things to gestate and to achieve their intended goal. And I think the goals are really important. I mean, again, going back to even inconsequential things is like bands, like I for everything we do, we set the highest goal. There's paint the White House black at the top, and then there is play a concert. Down
like play a house show.
exactly. It doesn't matter what it is. Like when our band began, I thought if I played a show outside of the city of Pittsburgh, it's over. We're Kiss. It's done. We did it. We played New York City. Fuck yeah. Like, what else do I have to do? So everything I do beyond playing Green Day songs in my mother's garage is a victory for me. And so I'm well aware that I'm on borrowed time with this rock and roll shit every minute. So I'm just like, yeah, let's just enjoy it as it comes, because it's so much further superseding the intention that we set out to do.
Yeah. But the best thing too about goals is like, and big goals is when you're in the process of working towards that goal, so much other cool stuff can kind of manifest organically and take you down paths that you weren't even planning on. And you can just like seek and destroy and just dominate that stuff that you didn't even intend on.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I say to the bands that we work with is have these goals. Do If you want to play 30 shows in a year, you set that achievable goal. If you want your Instagram followers to go up 500 people or whatever arbitrary fucking measurement of success that exists in the world that I'm already too old to understand. Um, if that's what you want, set that goal. And then you can also have the main sell a million albums or go on tour with Green Day or do whatever can be at the very top. But at least when you look back somewhere in that process, you can be like, well, we checked off these 5 things and we did these 10 things that we didn't even know were on the list. So I'm not a failure. If you only have this one intention of sell a million records and go on a world tour with Green Day, then yeah, at the end of the year, you're probably going to be bummed. But if you are able to assess it in a way that's manageable, and this goes for everything, that goes for working at Starbucks, that goes for fucking being a therapist and helping people with their mental health. We can find applicable situations for all of those things.
Yeah. That's good advice. Good perspective to have. I like that.
With age comes perspective.
That's the only way to get it. But if you're open to like having awareness and even like, receiving new frame of mind.
Yeah.
What's your favorite quote?
Well, so you hit me with this before, and I have so many. It was so hard to figure out what to say here. But I am going to say a quote from a friend of mine. Her name is Alita, and she's currently running for a political office in New York, and super amazing grassroots candidate. And her husband also ran for public office, and I kind of met him because he was like talking about what got him into politics and activism, and he had mentioned anti-flag, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is like the manifestation of what we hope is that someone will interact with punk rock and then want to better the lives of other people some way. And I did this little fundraiser thing for Alita not too long ago, and in it she said, those that are closest to the suffering of themselves and other people are those that are closest to the solutions to that suffering. And I thought that is such a valuable perspective, especially for people who might have good intentions in terms of helping others. But what happens is we go into the situation with our privilege and with our even just our good intentions, and we don't listen to the folks that are actually suffering. And we impose our understanding of what will better their lives. And I think that works in all aspects. I think it works on the political landscape and how we change a system that is set up to benefit only a handful of corporate elites. And I think that it works on a human level in how we interact with each other and how we interact with ourselves. And I think it's valuable to listen to those that are in pain and those that are suffering and what they're searching for in terms of alleviation of that.
Yeah, listening is huge.
It's hard
Like,
for me. I got a loud mouth. Yeah. But I'm aware of it.
I've heard good things
Yeah.
occasionally when I'm listening. Do you guys have anything cool coming up that you want to share on?
The only thing that I can think of is we are gonna go on tour, and that's cool and exciting to us because we haven't done it in a year and a half. So our dates are up on the internet, and they're all on sale. A bunch of the shows are selling out, and we're really excited to do it. Knock on wood that it happens. But the other exciting thing is we bought a building here in Pittsburgh, and it will be the new home of AF Records and our studio and operation that I'm in now, which is like a closet. It's gonna be much nicer and actually have daylight and all those things that people need. And that's what we're gonna be working on up until the day we go on tour because it's a fucking mess right now. Yeah, so a lot of exciting stuff, but also just excited to see another human. And I've been by myself for a year and a half, so it's nice that we're starting being allowed to see other people. But I
Yeah.
also will say that the pandemic scratched an itch of the worst parts of my personality. Like, I love doing nothing and could totally just nap all day and just chill. So that's why I started doing kung fu, and I've been playing a lot of hockey. I'm trying to be a contributing member of society, but
Uh-huh.
I also did a lot of nothing over the last year and a half.
But you know what? Sometimes you just need a reset button, whether it's, forced upon you or elective. Like, otherwise you're just gonna sink and drown.
Absolutely, I would agree with that, and it's been a nice reset. But I am anxious to go and do the thing that we know how to do best.
Yeah. So the reset button worked.
Yeah, I will tell you, as much as I had an enjoyable experience, I am so looking forward to no longer doing things on Zoom.
I know, right? God, and I started this project during the whole pandemic thing, and I hear people say like, "Oh, so many good initiatives have started because of it," and I'm like, "No, this just happened to be coinciding with this time. Okay, it has no actual relation to it." So yeah, I'm gonna be still stuck on Zoom. So congratulations to you for getting off of it.
I'm out of here.
Um, Thank you so much for making time and sharing all of your personal bits and bobs and, advice and experiences. I think you relayed some good, nuggets of like wisdom if someone has their ears opened.
Well, again, what I found is that quantity over quality. I just will talk a lot, and one of the things I say is going to be of value, and then we'll move on. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been an honor, and I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, and I hope that we can see each other in person soon. That would be awesome.
Yeah, far out. Well, thank you.
In the attic, we are the voices in the static. You have a sickness, and we are the disease that breaks